Hidden gems and great value deals are the focus of this video, where we'll take a look at some strategy and simulation games that are on special as part of the Steam Winter Sale, running now right the way through to 2024. Let's jump in. First and foremost, Ozymandias at 45% off brings it to around $7 US, though as always, regional pricing may vary. Ozymandias is a turn-based 4X historical strategy game, a self-proclaimed Bronze Age empire sim, and in many ways it resembles a puzzling game as well. Why? Well, take a look at the map for starters. A fixed map, one of many, and inside of it we're tasked with managing 4 resources: science, money, food, and power. Food used to collect tiles on the map and grow our empire or build cities. Science used to unlock benefits. Benefits like providing more yield on our tiles or making tiles cheaper to unlock. At the end of each turn, we're presented with an opportunity, a kind of roguelike element that maybe steers us in a certain direction toward victory, and victory is achieved through these crowns. Different crowns awarded for the different levels of achievement that you might or might not reach in a game of Ozymandias. There's also a military element here, though it is fairly straightforward to control. There's a lot of complexity involved, spawning in either units at the sea or on land, and then marching them toward enemy borders. The player with the most power based on their tile unlocks and progression, as well as their military units, may very well slowly take over the land of an enemy and ultimately move toward those victory crowns. It's an easy game to pick up and a difficult one to master. Next on my list, another new entry, Thronefall. Thronefall released in August of 2023, so it is a very new game. It's also quite a simple game and straightforward, and that's why at a price point 20% off, about $5, I feel like it's kind of a no-brainer. It's a minimalist tower defense game with some city builder elements thrown in the mix. You play this beautiful little ruler right in the middle of the map, and basically you run around and fight enemies and or build a little civilization here. A kind of tower defense mixed with a colony builder. It's up to you how you spend your gold at the end of each round. A round progresses at nightfall, something that's triggered by you. You can choose to spend your money on defenses, maybe personal upgrades for you and your strength, or extra units to help you defend perhaps some economic buildings. Inside of each level you play through a certain number of nights, and then once you've completed those nights, those rounds, you can then move through to another level. At the moment, the game probably has about 5 hours of playing time within the core levels, a fairly new experience, but it also has an infinite mode, because of course you could just go and go and go to try and get a high score. I've found, like a lot of other games on this list, one of the underlying themes in this video is that a lot of these games are pretty addictive. Sit down, think you'll play for 5 minutes, and a 5-minute session turns into an hour or more. The progression, as you move through, you unlock sort of new perks, weapons, and abilities, helping to add a little bit of flavor and flair as you go along. The third entry on my list, Songs of Conquest, is not a game that I've never mentioned on the channel before, but at 50% off, bringing it down to a comfortable $12 US, it's an easy recommend for me, and perhaps a slightly lesser known game, despite it being absolutely brilliant. In a very Heroes of Might and Magic inspired world, you start off walking around as a hero, collecting resources, bumping into enemies, and generally kind of exploring about. There's also a settlement building element here too, where you're also crafting carefully an economy, full of troops that you've drafted, extra resources that you'll need to get more gear, to build more settlements as you explore the map. The map gets progressively more difficult the more time you take though, so take care because enemies will become stronger over time. One of my favorite things though is probably this battle screen, where it turns into more of a turn-based tactics, sort of a strategy fighting game. Of course, strong RPG elements underpin this very magical world as well, but I find the fights, the animations, everything about this game super beautiful. And I think that Songs of Conquest is therefore a very easy recommend fitting inside of the brief of this video. It came out around a year and a half ago, it's received a few updates since then. I love the way it's moving. Next, a new game in 2023, Hexarchy, 20% off, about $14 US, making it hilariously one of the more expensive entries in this video, though granted, maybe not too bad. Here you choose a civilization, one of about 10. Each one has their own unique flavor and flair, as Civ players will have come to expect. It's a deck builder Goodness gracious, I should have spelt that word out. But it's also a 4X, hex grid-based, turn-based strategy game. Did I throw enough labels at you there? Am I Steam in Wikipedia form? Maybe. Inside of it, each turn you're presented with some cards from your deck. Tech cards, boost cards, or units. Choose to play them and march around the world just like you would in any other 4X game. Combat plays out in a way you might expect, but the careful crafting here is around basically two things. Firstly, the objective, generally victory points, so you could choose to play really wide and try and grab as many tiles as you like, maybe take down some enemies, build some wonders, lots of different ways to get those. The second thing, of course, is how you choose to play your cards or not play them. Burning cards, discarding cards, or potentially holding one so that you can redraw it again next turn are all really important parts of a Hexarchy strategy. A game might take about 30 minutes, 60 minutes at the most, so it's also a quick play and a very enjoyable 4X game. The fourth entry on my list is Slay the Spire. 66% off, about $7. This one, not a new game, releasing in 2019, and it still holds overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam and many other places, and for good reason. I sat down to record just a couple of minutes of this game for this video, and it's very easy to get stuck. Again, that addictive element playing out. It's a roguelike DECK building card game, thrown in mission upon mission as you progress through a roguelike world. Will you face enemies, or will you go to the reward cache instead as you make your way towards the final boss? Well, that's entirely up to you. Similarly to Hexarchy, although with more depth and detail in how we might upgrade cards, re-roll, discard, redraw, there's lots of elements into specifically crafting the DECK in between rounds. And the really crucial part is probably how you manage your health, choosing to block, choosing to give up some rewards. It's these decisions that ultimately will determine whether you beat the boss or not. How conservatively or aggressively do you want to play? That is the challenging factor, and my goodness, it's good. Now we're going to take a quick change of pace for some rapid recap recommendations, some quick and easy wins from my previous video. There'll be time cards below if you'd like to skip ahead, but I'm not going to spend long on each one. Civilization 5, the complete bundle, is a quick and easy recommend, my personal favourite Civilization game. Though, to be fair, Civilization 6, generally more popular, and that base game equally falls within the brief of this video in terms of the great value deals, obviously not so much the hidden gems side. Likewise, Anno 1800 at 75% off, another quick and easy win. And finally, turn-based tactics have a couple of great ones too, like the original Xenonauts, if you don't quite want to stretch to the second, or of course the king of turn-based tactics, XCOM 2 at 90% off. I'd recommend the collection bundle if you can stretch to it. Paradox's Grand Strategy equally on special, though it will of course only be the base game, so experienced players will need to invest in some DLC as well. Back to our recommendations. Satisfactory, a great value deal at 45% off, brings the game to about $17 US, give or take. The New Zealand dollar and the US dollar don't necessarily have a brilliant relationship. Now, Satisfactory features on this list, not obviously because it's in the hidden gem side, but because of its great value deal, releasing in 2020, early access still. Satisfactory is a base building game, a game about automation, about gathering resources and bettering your base, defending it, and ultimately maybe exploring around with friends too, if you've got some of those. There's obviously a key crafting element here too, that brings together probably one of the best simulation games that aren't played from a bird's eye view. Satisfactory continues to receive major updates very frequently, or fairly frequently. It's an easy recommend. Next, Frostpunk, 80% off, $5. This one is a popular game, but I would argue also, for some reason, kind of falls into the hidden gem category as well. It released in 2018, so maybe its age is a factor here. At 80% off, about $5, you can't go wrong with quite a hardcore, survival-focused city building game. Obviously, as you can see, it has a very unique aesthetic as well, and that aesthetic plays through, that Frostpunk aesthetic, obviously, plays through not just in the world building, but also in other elements, like the soundtrack, and everything that goes around this game. We're expecting Frostpunk 2, a gameplay trailer in fact, probably to release early in 2024, So Frostpunk, the original, might be a reasonable pickup in the sale if you'd like to get into the groove and become a bit more familiar with this franchise ahead of the sequel's launch. It's a hardcore game, and I'd highly recommend it. Shifting very much into the value side of this video, Age of Empires 2, the definitive edition, 75% off, about $5. If you weren't playing it 20 years ago, now is the time. Why? Well, because my goodness, has this game been supported or has this game been supported? What you're watching right now is the trailer for the most recent DLC, which just released. They continue to update the game, they continue to add more to the game, and of course, at its base level, it is one of the definitive real-time strategy games. City builder, come strategy, come warfare, simulation experience. I probably don't need to describe Age of Empires, that's why the recommendations at the end of this video will be fairly brief, but the definitive edition of 2 is for you. Second to last, the penultimate recommendation is Northguard. Again, a game that I've mentioned before that you may probably be familiar with. Northguard is a city builder game largely focused in and around progressing your way across collecting different tiles of the map and the resources, the building opportunities, and potentially the conflict that they offer. It's a fairly hardcore survival game, though not as hardcore as some of the other entries that we may have seen on this list, but it will still challenge you. It's still a very challenging experience. Also a relatively competitive one, and again, like Satisfactory and like Age of Empires 2, one that continues to receive a lot of love and a lot of updates, making it a great value pick. And finally, one for the sim fans, Planet Zoo. At 75% off, I probably don't need to describe this zoo tycoon game to you, mixing elements of management and simulation inside of a sandbox building world. You will design your ultimate zoo. It's a great game. Like the Paradox games that we mentioned earlier, it does have a shite-load of DLC, but if you're new to it, picking up the base game should be good enough. If not, you might want to stretch to the premium edition at 60% off. And that concludes this video, and also me, for 2023. I'm taking a break over the holidays. There may be 1 or 2 videos that drop, but by and large, I'll be returning around early to mid-January. Thank you so much for all of your support. Seriously, it's a big part of motivation to do kind of creative work like this, and motivation is everything for fueling it. So thank you for making 2023 a wonderful year. I wish you all the best in however, wherever, whatever you're doing over the holiday period, and I'll see you all in 2024.